That was beautiful, Sandy. And you know something, what you see, Sandy came up here and said, how can I sing after that? And what happened, you see, is that as I was sharing that Sandy had the courage to risk and say yes to life, she hooked into the feelings and the emotions that went with that experience at youth seminar. No man is an island. And you know, we're here to know that. Yet I remember one time, Dr. Tom Johnson was speaking here, and I forget what his topic was. It's on a Wednesday or Thursday. And so Merle just thought, it was during the week, and she thought that'd be terrific to have that song, No Man is an Island. In fact, I think Sandy sang it, as a matter of fact. And you know what? Dr. Tom Johnson says, every man is an island, you know. But what he meant by that, you see, no man is an island. I believe that with all my heart, and that's why we're here. We're here to get in touch with our interconnectedness. We're here to find out that we have a support system. We're here to know that we're all one with each other and one with the whole. And in fact, knowing that we are one with the whole is truly the key to healing and the key to what life is all about. But from the frame of reference that no man is an island, and what's happening is our teacher is here for the teenagers. This is an interesting morning, and well, say yes to life. You know, I'm going to talk a little bit, too, about say yes to life, the best of times and the worst of times. I don't know. It just keeps whatever. Anyhow, from the frame of reference in terms of that every man is an island, we are in terms of that each one of us are responsible for our own growth process, our own choices, and this is a hard lesson to learn. It's something that sometimes is difficult for people to accept. Yet if we that are students of truth, we who have said yes to the growth process, then we learn that either voluntarily or involuntarily. And I was going to say my topic this morning is the best of times or on be a volunteer. And the reason I make that statement is because there's a statement, and I've learned it through experience, that either we voluntarily enter into a spiritual path, into the growth process, or the experiences of life force us to do it involuntarily. So you know what? We might as well be a volunteer. Be a volunteer to move in, to have the courage to know that, yes, we, in one hand, we're an island unto ourselves, and unto ourselves, on the other hand, no man is an island, because there is a support system. It's so important to me in my own growth process to somehow, some way develop the faith that there is, when we are moving through that growth process, when we are giving it, when we dare to do that, when we're giving it our energy, when we're giving it our best shot, so to speak, that means we're saying yes to life. That means we are saying, hey, I am for myself, and when I am for myself, the universe is for me. Or there's a statement, if God is for me, who can be against me? Because sometimes it appears that the whole world, the whole universe is against us. And so I'm going to talk about it's the best of times and the worst of times, and the parallel to that, and I'm also going to speak about saying yes to life. And what I would like to say in reference to say yes to life is that, as you well know, and in August when I was here, we did 5 weeks of truly, I felt, a terrific a series of lessons on Sundays in terms of prosperity and wholeness and healing and all these great things. And I made reference to my class. I had a 5-week class this summer called Breakthrough to Prosperity. And it was interesting that there were the group, some of the people in that class that had, during the summer, after we did our 5-week class, started just having demonstrations and breakthroughs and the feeling of saying yes to life and moving into newness and moving into changes and moving into risk-taking. And I thought about that, and I realized that the group that things really started happening after that 5-week class were mostly the group that had moved through Religious Science 2 with me from September until June. And that 5-week class was sort of a post-grad class. And it's just that, see, there is a process, and we're a part of life's process. This is why class work is so important, by the way. But they had been moving. They had been saying yes to life. They had been saying yes to growth. They had been saying yes to change. They had been saying yes to responsibility. They had been saying yes to the process of self-transformation, of self-renewal, of renewing their minds and renewing the beliefs in their hearts. And so I feel that this is why that there was such this tremendous breakthrough into the world of experience for several of these people. They had been putting the effort, they've been seeding the soil, which I'll speak about next Sunday for months and months and months. And this is what the life and the growth process is all about. For me personally, I really had a breakthrough. And this last summertime, for me, was the best of times. And I'll tell you, for me personally, summer used to be the worst of times. Number one, the kids are out of school and I didn't know what to do with them. They drove me crazy at certain age stages, especially when they're 15 and they want to drive a car and they're too old for mom to take them anywhere. Anyhow, but also, I don't know, it just seemed like I felt separated. It just seemed like sort of like kissing the floor of hell or being out in the desert. And we all have these desert experiences in our growth process. And so I do love fall. I love the energy that comes with fall. At any rate, this summer was truly the best of times for me because my own breakthrough was just in process and outpictured itself. And I'm going to share that with you. Last spring, and I shared when I heard Joseph Chilton Pierce speak at Cal State Northridge, that that whole experience just truly quickened and was a catalyst for another quantum leap of growth and self-investigation and self-analysis and self-realization for me. And I've been seeing the outpicturing of that, the outpouring of that into my world of experience. And it's come to me, and I share this because I feel that perhaps some of you here can relate to it. And what happened was that I allowed a spontaneity to move through me that I had really shut down, and that I have been so responsible and so serious and so lined up for and in this little channel of all the shoulds and the tyranny of the shoulds and all the shoulds that we should do in life. Anyhow, I began to say yes. I began to be spontaneous. And so I've been off the platform. I haven't been on vacation exactly, but I said yes and spoke at San Diego on September 1st. I said yes when Reverend Leslie Harold asked me to speak in Capistrano. And maybe I felt a little more free to do that because I haven't been out of the country for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is. But at any rate, it was just all a sign. And then my friend Dr. Yvonne Smith called me the Wednesday before I was going to, a week ago Wednesday, and they were on vacation, and their family has a wonderful house in Catalina, and she said, why don't you speak at Capistrano? Her daughter and her son-in-law are members of that church, and then just go up to San Pedro, get the boat, and come on over to Catalina. And I thought about it, and I said, okay, that sounds terrific. Now, there was a time when I would no way be that spontaneous because I would think I should be in my office, I should be in that mail, da-da-da-da-da-da. But you know what? It was all there when I came back. It didn't take anything away from anyone. But the main thing, and the thing I'm sharing with you, is that I had taken my spontaneous, happy little kid, and for the most part had locked that little kid up in a closet. Now, in my growth process, I became aware of that. And I, from time to time, would try to work on letting that little kid out of the closet. It's sort of like that she forgot to play. And I really felt the breakthrough of giving myself permission to be spontaneous and to do fun things, maybe just for a day. And you know what the end result of that is? That my little kid, in other words, I was saying yes to joy, yes to playing, yes to fun, yes to life. And the result of that is that my little kid does not feel deprived, and I'm aware of that. So I'm hoping maybe you can relate to that, because what happens when we say no is that we lock that spontaneous child that needs to experience some joy in life, most certainly needs to be responsible, most certainly needs to do the thing that is required to participate in life and to give service in whatever area that is, but also needs to have some joy. And so many of my peers have done the same thing. We just get so heavy with responsibility and we lock that little kid away. So I'm suggesting that if you've locked your little kid away, think about it and maybe open that door and maybe say yes to life and say yes to some fun. And one of the statements that I've heard in this metaphysical circle forever is that spontaneity is the key to life. Now, there certainly is a wisdom in using that spontaneity, but spontaneity is the key to life, and we're here to say yes to life. And so I wanted to share and maybe stir up within you. And you know, I spoke at Capistrano last Sunday, and it's fun to visit other churches because they do different things. One of the things that they do is that they had two people a share, and they call it inspiration time. And they had two people come up before I spoke and share a demonstration that they had in their life through the ministry of prayer. And that's very moving. And it also stimulates and creates faith. And maybe we might do a little of that. But it is great to be reinforced that there is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it and direct it through that which we call spiritual mind treatment. Now, as I shared the best of times last Sunday, I suppose I combine maybe both of these topics in terms of the best of times is really when we say yes to life. The best of times are when we say yes to love. The best of times are when we say yes to wholeness, to yes to healing, yes to growth, yes to whatever it is that's meaningful and wonderful in your life. Several people came up to me last Sunday, and one lady, gorgeous, beautifully dressed, and she said, I have everything I want, but she said, you really inspired me to say yes to having a loving relationship in my life. And that was an area where she had said no. So what I'm saying, and think about it, if there is an area in your life that appears not to be open and joyous, and that appears to be locked, the door closed, why take a look at it and see if you're willing to risk saying yes to moving in and risking, because to move into newness is scary. To move into a new frame of reference, a new consciousness is scary. Some of the people, my second year breakthrough to prosperity, one lady has chosen to move into a whole new career, but she is so excited. She loves what she's doing, and she's excited about moving into something new and something that's truly, I know, part of her divine intent and her prosperity and her creativity and her giving service to life. But this is a risk, and this is, it truly can shake you up. So take a look at your life. See if you're willing to say yes to growth, because the tale of two cities, it's the best of time. It was the best of times and the worst of times, and it was the best of times in London, but the worst of times in Paris, because they were in the process, in the midst of the French Revolution, and so it was the worst of times. I thought about that, and for me personally, and I'm sure for many of you, when we have judged the experiences, the appearance of the experiences as the worst of times, in my personal review, that I have really been aware that which appeared to be the worst of times in my life have always been the best of times. And that French Revolution that appeared, and most certainly was a dreadful time in history, but it was the worst of times was really the best of times, because it was time for the evolution of freedom to take place at that particular point in history. Now, let's take that to your life and to my life. Sometimes when we have our problems and we have our challenges, and we feel and it appears as if it is the worst of times, yet for me, and I'm sure if you would think it through, those times have been the best of times, because guess what? It's a part of our individual evolutionary process to move forward, to evolve our consciousness, to take another step towards the evolution of freedom. Freedom for our minds, for our world, for our lives, for our emotions. And so the worst of times, they're saying it's time to stretch, it's time to grow, it's time to renew your mind, it's time to be transformed, it's time to say yes to life, it's time to be healed, it's time to love, it's time to let go of the old and to move on. It's time to give God the opportunity to be God in your life. And so personally I found that, and everything is in our world according to our perception. And I feel that we just think that the best of times are when there's no problems. The best of times are when things are going along and everything seems terrific, and you look all around and everything's okay. Then what happens? A little anxiety starts kind of churning around, and you keep kind of looking over your shoulder, wondering, how long is this going to last? And why does that happen to us? We are conditioned by race mind, race consciousness, race experience, that we have to make the best of it. We have to make the best of the worst times. That there's, that the best of times cannot last. The good cannot last. It's too good to be true, etc., etc. We're a part of that. We're a part of race experience. We're a part of race thought. We're a part of race consciousness. Whether we understand that or not, we are part of that. And because we are, and because no man is an island unto himself or unto herself, it means that every positive thought, every healing, all the energy of our faith, the spiritual experiences, the experiences of illumination, which are truly experiences of oneness, touch the race mind, the race consciousness, the race life everywhere. And so we do make a difference, and we are a part of the wholeness. And so what I am suggesting is it's according to our perception. And yes, the world says, hey, you're not supposed, this is the worst of times. And I would also like to share that if we look at what's going on in our world, and I don't think it's any worse than it's been at any other point in history, it appears to be the worst of times. The worst of times is another quantum leap. It's a part of a divine plan. It's a part of the divine intent. It's a part of the evolutionary process of moving into a greater dimension of freedom and into a greater dimension of spiritual consciousness on this planet. This planet is billions of years old, and it's going to be here for billions of years. That's why we really need to get into the acceptance, into the energy that this is the best of times. I do not care what problem you have in your life or what problem I have in my life. It is the best of times, and I'll tell you why. We know what to do. We know that there's a place to go. We know that there can be a change. We know that we do not have to be stuck in that which appears to be the worst of times. We know that the problem is the answer. What a gift. What a wonderful, great gift. And truly, we know that this is the best of times because we have the freedom of choice and that we have the freedom to be all that we were intended to be, to grow. Life is a process. It's a growth process. It's an evolutionary process. In a few moments, I'm going to share some words with you, some concepts, some ideas of Teilhard Chardin, who wrote The Phenomena of Man, the great Jesuit priest. And I'm going to share that his discovery in terms of, as he was studying the phenomena of man, he discovered the phenomena of God and the unity and the oneness of it all. And so those who truly have been the mystics and throughout history, those who have been the saviors throughout history, those who are on this planet today that are truly the great, the power that truly is needed on this planet, those who are in touch with the oneness, those that are in touch with the phenomena of God as it expresses through the phenomena of man, are truly, and the mystics that are on this planet today, and there are some, truly are in touch with that this is the best of times, that we are rapidly, whether it appears or not, that we are rapidly moving towards that omega point that Chardin speaks of, that we are rapidly moving towards the evolutionary process, the quantum leap into that which is peace and that which is love. And, we judge everything by time, and to us it just seems imperceptibly slow. Our growth seems very slow, yet there is not really any time. And so and of course, anything you read, in the terms of inspiration, in the terms of education, in terms of spiritual development, are admonishing us to not live in the past, to let go of the past, to not project into the future, and to endeavor to live in the now. That's difficult. All our depression, all our anxieties are usually anxieties about the past and anxieties about concerning the future. And truly the challenge of the best of times is to really experience the best of times. And the best of times is when we can live life right here and right now. The best of times is when we can take one day at a time and know that just for today, no matter what the challenge is, the problem is, there is a power and there's that within me that can handle this challenge and this problem, that truly can transform that which appears to be the worst of times. We need to gather up our spiritual forces. We need to gather up our energy, to gather up our faith, to gather up our inspiration, and truly allow ourselves to be motivated to say yes to life, to say, yes, this is the best of times. Yes, there is something that can happen, that can transform, transmute this particular situation, and most specifically our individualized consciousness. We are here to have life and to have it more abundant. That's an unfolding, evolving process for all of us, and that process comes into self-acceptance. I was doing some treatment work for someone recently that's in the world of sales. It's a salesperson. And you know, there's nothing more difficult, I think, than to be a salesman. And I guess I'm one of sorts. But it's really hard. There's some people, though, that just have a natural whatever that is. But there are a lot of people out there that are successful salespeople that didn't have that natural, assertive, aggressive, whatever that is. And they're out there doing their thing. And I was thinking in my treatment work that this individual is not putting themselves out there, they're putting God out there. And that still small voice said that to me. And you know, if we could realize that every time that you and I are putting ourselves out there for whatever that is, in the area of career, in the area of relationships, in the area of successful living, whatever that is, in the area of prayer. In the area of prayer, we're not putting ourselves out there. I of myself can do nothing. We're putting God out there. And of course this thought came to me as I was going to speak in a foreign land at another church, and I thought, wow, I need to remember that. And we all need to remember that, because if we're putting ourselves out there, we do a heck of a lot of self-depreciation. We do a heck of a lot of that I'm not good enough, I'm not whatever all that stuff is that race mind, race experience, and maybe our own experiences have perhaps ingrained within our belief system. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I locked my little kid in the closet and said, hey, you can't come out and play, you've got to be responsible and work hard so that you'll get everybody's approval. That goes back to my childhood. For heaven's sakes, at my age, I am breaking the barrier. I am breaking the block. I'm having a breakthrough into allowing myself to move into a more whole, joyous experience of life. And so and that's what to me is Sundays and classwork's all about, that there's always this great hope, there's always this great energy that moves through us, and that always we can move into, we can have a breakthrough, we can have a healing, we can move into a greater dimension of wholeness and joy and living and loving and learning in our lives, and that is what life's all about. Chardin, I truly believe, and in our teaching, we believe in the evolutionary process, and of course there's this big controversy between the evolutionists and the creationists. And interestingly enough, there was just a news item, I guess there's a book in this junior high level, I think, on science, and the author, trying to walk the fine line and not offend anybody, makes reference to the evolutionary process and makes a reference to the creation process, and so everybody's unhappy because the author didn't take a stand. And so they're saying, we're either going to teach this or this. Anyhow, apparently they're going to use the book this year and try to find a new book that they can use. But it's okay. It's a matter of opinion. It's a matter of belief. And for me, in observing my own life, I come into agreement with the concepts, and most certainly the field of science it reinforces this. Everywhere we look, there's science is reinforcing that this planet is an evolutionary process. Yet you and I are here to know that there is a God, that there is something behind all that appears to be, and it's an intelligence, and it is a love, and it is a power, and it's the primal cause. And this is what the foundation that we learn and that we generate, so that we can put under the girder of our life's experience, as the girders for our life's experiences. Chardin, who again was a Jesuit priest, was a paleontologist, was French, and his investigation into the field of his science led him to these ideas and these concepts. And of course the Catholic Church absolutely refused to recognize his writings, refused to recognize him even as a teacher, and as late as 1965, interestingly enough, the Catholic Church was saying that no way were the children to be exposed to his thoughts, his teachings, his life, etc. Today that has changed. Today they recognize him, today they celebrate his discoveries, his mysticism, and that which he contributed to life. But just for a moment, let me share that Chardin made the comment that life does not move along. He discovered that life does not move along a random course, that we can chart progress, that fossil records show an onward, upward march from primeval slime to high-tech denizens on the edge of the 21st century. And again, in studying the phenomena of man, he discovered the phenomena of God. And Chardin envisioned a destiny beyond mere physical evolution. And he made the comment that the evolutionary process to self-aware man isn't the end of the line. And of course, his works sometimes are difficult to read because they're very scientific, but underlying all of that is this Christian mysticism, his belief that love is the power, the catapult that's going to catapult us into this next dimension of consciousness. And Chardin envisioned, again, a destiny beyond mere physical evolution, and he called it the Omega Point. The Omega Point is Christ. And he's commented that love and fulfillment will catapult human consciousness to the source itself. We will become one with God, but still individual entities. And he made the comment that as we move from this level of life, from this planet, that we are eternal, that we're always in the evolutionary process, and that the Omega Point is that thing that we're all moving towards, which is the Christ consciousness, which truly is, his vision was the movement of all consciousness toward the Omega Point, the Christ consciousness. Now, he also felt that even though we're similar, and all of this is going to be so familiar to you because you read it in anything you're studying in terms of the spiritual development, and that we're similar, but we're differentiated. That we're each one unique. That we're each one different, even though we come from this base, from this founding Father, from in the beginning God, and that each one has a divine intent, and that each one is here to give to life, to serve life, to express life, and life after life after life, as we move towards this Omega Point, this Christ consciousness, where we are one with the whole, where we are one with God. Ernest Holmes makes the comment that our awareness of our oneness with the whole is healing. That's the healing power. And when you and I in prayer and treatment can get into this consciousness of our oneness with the whole, then truly there is this quickening process of the spirit that's within us, and we have a miracle, we have a healing, we have a demonstration. Chet Castellaw, who was pastor, and he was in religious science for many years, wrote a book called When Things Look the Worst. And I think we have it back there on the book table. Chet Castellaw was a wonderful teacher. He was a writer for Bob Hope for many years, even after he was a minister. And then finally his ministry was his total dedication. And it's interesting, Earlene was telling me, his wife, the other day, that when he told Bob Hope that he just couldn't write for him anymore, Bob Hope already knew that was going to happen. That was part of Chet's, I suppose, evolutionary process in terms of moving and towards that spiritual journey and that where he was to give. At any rate, you wrote this book called When Things Look the Worst, and he had a wonderful sense of humor, and it's a very simple book. But he's talking about that we have a technique, then that technique is treatment. He gives you the steps of treatment. He tells you what to do and how to do it. And he makes the comment that in his counseling that that he would say, well, do you meditate? And they'd say yes. And he said, and he tells this little story. And he said, well, how often do you meditate? And they said, oh, about once every 2 or 3 weeks. And he said, hey, that's not going to change consciousness. That's not going to change your life. Anyhow, one of the things that he makes, statements he makes in that amused me, was he said that people say, I don't have the time. He said, saying that you don't have the time to meditate is like saying I don't have time to eat. Anyhow, he said, if it's a matter of time, and if you get up in the morning, and it's a matter of whether you brush your teeth or meditate, he says, meditate and go to work and don't smile all day. And I loved it because it's saying that the most important thing we do is to get ourselves centered, into that Omega point, in that Christ consciousness, in that presence and in that power. I want to share something else with you this morning that's been meaningful to me, and that is Ernest Holmes. I just was reading some miscellaneous writings, and he said that gratitude is recognition, and praise is affirmation. And he said our whole life should be established in these two concepts, these two actions, these two activities. Gratitude is recognition. Praise is affirmation. And you know, I truly have been moving, it's interesting, into a consciousness of gratitude. And you know, I'm not treating for anything. Now, I'm not saying don't treat. But but gratitude and praise are the perfect meditation or the perfect prayer, because and you know what I would like to suggest, and I did this for myself, and that is take an inventory of what is right about your life. Take an inventory of what is right about your world. And you know, I did that recently, and I realized that I am prosperous, that I am rich, that I am loved, that I am creative, and that I am wonderful, that my life is wonderful. And why I'm suggesting this is that to get into this concept, take an inventory of what's right. You're going to feel rich. You're going to feel prosperous. You're going to feel creative. You're going to have a greater degree of faith in yourself, in your spiritual growth process, in your treatment work, in your meditation work, but it's the feeling that is so important, because the feeling is the catapult for the law of attraction. When you feel rich, when you feel prosperous, when you feel great about your life, when you feel loved, then that's praise, that's gratitude, that's the recognition of the answer. It's not the recognition of the worst of times. We get so caught up in the effect and the appearances, and we're just so caught up in that worst of times. A friend of mine, not in religious science, is truly going through what is the worst of times to her right here and right now. And she's a friend, a neighbor, and so I have certainly been there.